The breaking news, Tuesday, March the 12th, 2024, President Joe Biden. Joe Biden has secured enough delegates to be the Democratic-nominated person to enter the presidential race 2024. Hardly a surprise, but at least I'd like to bring you right up to date because the votes are in from Georgia. Kornacki, here we go.
There it is, Joy. The stretching has paid off. Joe Biden, our decision desk, has just projected will win Georgia. And let's go back now and there it is. He has now crossed with that. He gets the necessary delegates. We've just allocated him 104 of them. And so he has now crossed the number. 1968 was needed. Biden now at 1973. He's the presumptive nominee. Those are pledged delegates. Their commitments will be binding. So Joe Biden has the necessary delegates to win the Democratic nomination on the first ballot. To the extent there was any remaining suspense, it has been eliminated. Joe Biden, the presumptive nominee.
We made a lot of progress because of all of you, but there's more to do.
Over and over, they count him out. And over, Joe Biden delivers. He's been doing it for 50 years. Yeah, he's been around. He has the experience. He's doing the work. Straight-backed and proud like his generation was taught. Don't brag.
I'm really rich.
Don't make excuses. Don't be a smartass. Just make the tough decisions for the good of the country. And Joe knows loss. The kind of loss that burned a commitment in his soul to do whatever it takes to protect the lives of all Americans.
I've been in this fight for a long time, but I'll never give up.
Donald Trump never delivered for America. He only spewed a chorus of deep division and crafted a cesspool of corruption to benefit only himself.
I just want to find 11,780 votes.
In just under 3 years, Joe Biden has delivered unlike any president in modern history.
I mean, masterclass in terms of delivering results.
And folks, we're just getting started. With the American Rescue Plan, we provide relief and support directly to working class families. We're investing in America, in our roads, bridges, ports, airports, clean water, high-speed internet, and so much more. Children should have the right to go to school without fear of being gunned down with a weapon of war. Wall Street didn't build the country. The middle class built the country. And unions built the middle class. The Inflation Reduction Act, biggest investment in fighting climate change anywhere in the history of the world.
We can trust President Biden to fight for democracy. We can trust President Biden to lead America for another 4 years and finish the job because we know Biden always delivers.
I want my Republican colleagues to give me one thing, that I can go campaign on and say we did. One.
What do you think about the point David just made, that as we look at these results, obviously you've got Trump and Biden each winning in Georgia. Could be hugely symbolic in hindsight. We don't know. The state of Georgia putting Biden over the top. The point about the suburbs and whether there still is that protest vote, even though Nikki Haley, of course, is not in the race.
Yeah, Georgia's got something for everybody here, depending on what you're looking at. The suburbs have not been kind to Trump over the course of his time, and you see some former Republican voters flowing to the Democrats, but there are also a lot of African-American voters in Georgia, and some of the polling right now suggests that Trump's doing much better with African-Americans, especially African-American men. That could come to play in Georgia. Also, a lot of rural areas in Georgia. And one of the ways Donald Trump won in 2016 is driving up the vote in the rural areas. So Georgia, not only the fact that it was close, but for all these demographic reasons, and this is a state we're going to be talking about, I assume, every night out here.
Good evening, Joy. Great to be with you. And although I'm in D.C., let me say welcome again to Battleground, Georgia. The country should know by now that Georgia shows up. And there is poetry and power that it was Georgia that's pushing him now over the finish line. He is our official nominee. We know that Georgia literally saved the whole country in 2021, sending its first African-American senator and its first Jewish senator to the United States Senate from Georgia in one fell swoop. And if that had not happened, let me just give you one point. Ketanji Brown Jackson would not be sitting on the Supreme Court. And so Georgia did this on January 5th. As you point out, we saw a violent insurrection pushed forward by this ex-president on January 6th. And in a real sense, that's what this election is about. Are you going to choose the America of January 5th that would send a kid who grew up in public housing, the first African-American senator from Georgia, to the Senate, and a Jewish kid also mentored by John Lewis? Or are you going to give in to the forces of resentment and revenge and retribution that guide Donald Trump? I choose January 5th. I choose an America that embraces all of us.
Interestingly enough, on the day that President Biden received the nomination to be the Republicans candidate, officially 2024, Ken Buck decided he'd had enough, being pulled in left, right and centre, I think, in his case. And even more interesting, Jim Jordan just wasted a whole load of money again with another one of his calamity hearings. And this moment from the guy in California who looks like he could, well, become a senator. Adam Schiff, for me, summed it all up.
This place just keeps going downhill, and I don't need to spend my time here. We've taken impeachment and we've made it a social media issue as opposed to a constitutional concept. Mike Johnson's ability to talk me into staying here is going to be about as successful as his ability into talking me into unconstitutional impeachments.
What made you switch from Trump to Nikki Haley?
The man is a lunatic.
Anything but Trump.
That was your priority?
That's my priority.
Is that the biggest reason you supported Nikki Haley?
Yeah, I'd say.
Donald Trump should not be leading the Republican Party.
It's important to me to keep Trump out of office again.
Republican, I am. What do you do when that is end? If he is the nominee and it's he and Joe Biden, what do you do? I vote for Joe Biden.
I think Donald Trump is a threat to the well-being of our country.
He lies, he cheats, he bankrupted millions of businesses and people, and I don't see anything good about him.
Someone who has been found guilty of sexual assault should not be leading our country.
I voted for him in 2016. I am a registered Republican, and I regretted that vote almost immediately.
She drops out. Would you be disappointed if she endorsed Trump? I don't really think she will.
And I think it's meaningful that even at least in their rhetoric, those who I very much disagree with politically feel the need to talk about freedom, because that gives us actually a shared vocabulary, as divided as we are, to really come back to what matters most. I think freedom is on the line. Obviously, women's freedom to make their own decisions about their own health and their own bodies is on the line right now. The freedom of families like mine to exist right now is on the line. I think part of why we see a renewed push in this anti-LGBTQ legislation going through the states is very much a situation of freedom being on the line. And you know, you have youth in these states who are different. And for as long as there have been people who are different, there have been government officials demanding that they conform and be like everybody else. And what's happening now in these places is of a piece with that long, long pattern. And the question will be, what happens next? But it's not for nothing that some of these same political elected figures are now in the business of banning books. And if you were involved in banning books, you are not involved in expanding freedom. It's just not possible to be both.
And you could have chosen just to comment on the president's particular recall vis-a-vis a document or a set of documents, but you decided to go further and make a generalized statement about his memory, didn't you?
Congressman, I could have written my report theoretically in a way that omitted references to the president's memory, but that would have been an incomplete and improper report, and that it did not reflect my analysis.
You could have written your report with comments about his specific recollection as to documents or a set of documents, but you chose a general pejorative reference to the president. You understood when you made that decision, didn't you, Mr. Hur, that you would ignite a political firestorm with that language, didn't you?
Congressman, politics played no part whatsoever in my investigative steps.
But you understood nevertheless, didn't you, Mr. Hur? You cannot tell me you're so naive as to think your words would not have created a political firestorm. You understood that, didn't you, when you wrote those words, when you decided to include those words, when you decided to go beyond specific references to documents? You understood how they would be manipulated by my colleagues here on the GOP side of the aisle and by President Trump. You understood that, did you not?
Congressman, what I understood is the regulations that govern my conduct as special counsel.
And those regulations
required me to write a confidential report for the Attorney General,
which you knew would not be
explaining my
confidential.
decision, and that is what I did, Congressman. I
Mr. Hearn,
followed the rules.
You knew it
I
would
knew
not
the
be
rules, and I
confidential.
followed them.
You knew it would not be confidential, didn't you?
Sir, the regulations required me to write a confidential report explaining my decision to the Attorney General.
Which you knew would be released.
It was up to the Attorney General to
Which you
determine
you understood it would be released, did you
would
not?
be released consistent with DOJ policy.
You understood it
legal
would be
requirements.
released. You understood it would be released.
I
didn't you?
understood from the Attorney General's public comments that he would make as much of my report public as he could, consistent with legal requirements and DOJ
And you also
policy.
understand DOJ policy that you are to take care not to prejudice the interests of the subject of an investigation, right?
That is generally one of the interests that DOJ policy requires that prosecutors respect.
And it was your obligation to follow that policy in this report, was it not?
It was also my obligation to write a confidential report for the Attorney General explaining completely
But
my
what
decision.
you did write was deeply prejudicial to the interests of the president. You say it wasn't political, and yet you must have understood. You must have understood the impact of your words. You must have understood the impact of your decision to go beyond the specifics of a particular document, to go to the very general, to your own personal, prejudicial, subjective opinion of the president, one you knew would be amplified by his political opponent, one you knew that would influence a political campaign. You had to understand that. And you did it anyway.